You know that feeling, that just sort of low-level funk where you don't feel quite right?
Hmm.
What if some of the answers were actually hiding right there, in your everyday meals?
It's a really common thought.
Welcome to the deep dive. This time we're really getting into the weeds on dietary inflammation, how seemingly harmless foods might be, well, quietly causing issues inside you.
Exactly. Inflammation itself isn't bad, it's natural, part of how the body heals, like a repair crew.
Right.
But when it just hangs around, this low-grade, constant simmer, that's where problems can start.
Mm.
Our source material, it really emphasizes that this chronic, subtle kind of inflammation is linked to some big long-term health things.
Like what specifically?
Things like heart health, blood sugar issues, and, well, quite a bit more. Think of it like a tiny leak. Annoying at first, but over
It
time.
causes real damage. Okay, let's unpack this then. So our mission today is basically to cut through all the confusion and pinpoint the key things in our diet that might be fueling this inflammation.
Yeah, make it practical.
We've got this really insightful article to guide us, and we're going to pull out the most crucial bits, so you can make smarter choices without needing like a PhD to figure it out.
Exactly. Knowledge you can actually use, not just a list of jargon.
Perfect. So where do we kick off this culinary investigation?
Well, a logical place is usually fuel, right?
Yeah.
Energy. So that brings us to carbs, specifically the refined ones.
Okay.
Think, standard white bread, white rice, pastries, those really sugary breakfast cereals.
Wow, cereals. Guilty pleasure for many, I suspect.
Yeah.
So what's the actual issue there? Why are they problematic?
Well, think of them as almost pre-digested. They're stripped of their fiber, their nutrients,
Right.
so they break down super fast. Your bloodstream gets flooded with glucose.
The sugar rush?
Exactly. And that huge spike, plus the insulin your body pumps out to deal with it, that can trigger an inflammatory reaction. It's like your body saying, whoa, hang on, this is too much, too fast.
That's a great analogy, an overwhelming surge. Okay, what about sugary drinks then? Sodas, energy drinks, even some fruit juices that seem healthy.
Yeah, those are tricky. Many are basically just liquid sugar. The article points out this huge sugar load can contribute to insulin resistance.
Which is bad for inflammation.
Right, a key player. Plus, it can lead to fat building up, especially around the liver, and increases those inflammatory markers in your blood, like CRP.
CRP, remind me what that is again?
C-reactive protein. It's like an alarm bell the liver sends out when it senses inflammation somewhere in the body. So higher levels usually mean something's up.
Got it. So ditching the sugary drinks seems like a no-brainer. What's a better swap in the carb world?
The article really pushes for whole grains, things like oats, quinoa, brown rice.
The less processed stuff.
Exactly. And cereals that are naturally high in fiber, low in added sugar. That fiber slows everything down. You get a gentler rise in blood sugar, steadier energy, much less inflammatory.
Okay, makes sense. Whole and hearty good, refined and sugary. Maybe not ideal for keeping things calm inside. Right, let's talk fats. We know some are good, but which ones raise the inflammation alarm bells?
Trans fats are the big ones, definitely. They used to be everywhere. Some margarines, baked goods, a lot of fast food.
Used to be. So they're gone now.
Mostly, yeah. Regulations have really cut them down in many places, which is great news.
Okay.
But you still need to be a bit vigilant, check labels sometimes. They're just particularly nasty because they hit you twice.
Oh, so?
They can raise your bad LDL cholesterol and lower your good HDL. Plus, they directly promote inflammation.
Wow, double trouble indeed. Okay, minimize trans fats. What about other fats or meats?
Processed meats are another category the article flags. Bacon, sausage, salami, ham.
The usual suspects.
Yeah. Part of the issue is additives like nitrites.
Yeah.
But also how they're cooked matters. High temperature cooking for these and other foods can create compounds called AGEs.
AGEs. What are those?
Advanced glycation end products. Think about browning or crisping, that's sugars and proteins reacting. Your body doesn't quite recognize these AGEs properly, and they can trigger an immune response, inflammation.
Huh. So my weekend crispy bacon might be doing more than just tasting good.
It's something to be aware of, certainly. The suggestion is maybe lean towards minimally processed options or nitrate-free ones when you can find them.
Okay, noted. Now, the article also talks about ultra-processed foods. That sounds broad. What fits in there, and why the inflammation concern?
Yeah, it is broad. Generally, it means foods that have gone through a lot of industrial steps. They usually have long ingredient lists, refined oils, artificial additives, often lots of hidden sugar and salt.
So like ready meals, packaged snacks.
Exactly. Many breakfast cereals, again, even some of those sweetened plant-based yogurts or milks.
Wait, even the plant-based stuff. I thought that was meant to be healthier.
Well, that brings up the idea of health halos. Just because something shouts low-fat or plant-based or gluten-free on the front.
Doesn't mean it's automatically good for inflammation.
Precisely. It could still be packed with refined ingredients, sugars, additives that don't help.
That's such a critical point. We can't just go by the marketing hype. So the takeaway is read the actual label.
Become a label detective. Seriously, take that extra minute. Look at the ingredients, the nutrition facts. You might be surprised.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. The article links some lifestyle factors back to diet too, starting with alcohol. What's the inflammation connection there?
Well, excessive, regular, heavy drinking can really mess with your gut microbiome.
Ah, the gut health link again.
Yep, it's central. Disrupting those gut bacteria can increase inflammation system-wide. Plus, alcohol can directly increase certain inflammatory signals in the body, cytokines.
What about moderate drinking?
The article mentions it might be okay for some, but honestly, the evidence on health benefits is still kind of debated. Generally, for inflammation, less is probably better.
Fair enough. Okay, what about food additives, preservatives, MSG, things like that? Always controversial.
Yeah, they are. For most people, the common ones like MSG, carrageenan, sulfites, in the amounts usually found in food, are considered safe. But the article does acknowledge some individuals can be sensitive. For them, these might trigger inflammatory type reactions. It's very person-specific.
Interesting. So again, it comes back to listening to your own body.
Absolutely.
The article also mentions cooking methods, which I wouldn't have immediately thought of for inflammation.
It's a fascinating angle. Those high heat methods, grilling, frying, heavy roasting, they tend to create more of those AGEs we talked about earlier.
Ah, the browning compounds.
Exactly. And those AGEs can contribute to oxidative stress and inflammation inside the body.
So it's better boiling everything.
Not necessarily. Gentle methods are good, though. Slow cooking, steaming, poaching, maybe pressure cooking, they generally use lower temperatures.
Good to know. I do love a good stew. Okay, what about food sensitivities? Gluten, dairy, soy?
Oh.
The list seems endless sometimes.
Yeah.
How do they fit into the inflammation picture?
Well, for some people, yes, these specific foods can trigger inflammation or related symptoms. And the article stresses this, it's highly individual.
So it's not a case of everyone needing to cut out gluten or dairy.
Definitely not. Blanket elimination isn't usually the answer. If you suspect something, keeping a detailed food and symptom diary is a great first step. Or better yet, talk to a registered dietitian. They can help you figure out your triggers.
That makes so much sense. Personalization is key. Okay, let's dive deeper into gut health. You mentioned the microbiome. How crucial is that community of microbes for inflammation?
Oh, it's incredibly important. Think of a diverse, thriving gut microbiome as like a key regulator for your immune system and inflammation.
Right.
When that balance gets disrupted, maybe from antibiotics, a poor diet, low in fiber, chronic stress, it can actually promote inflammation throughout your entire body. A healthy gut helps keep things in check.
So how do we feed our good gut bugs through diet?
Fiber is huge, lots of fruits, vegetables, whole grains. Fermented foods are great too, things like yogurt with live cultures, kimchi, sauerkraut, and just variety, lots of different plant-based foods. That helps build a diverse gut community.
Feed the good guys.
Yeah.
Got it. The article also links stress and sleep to inflammation, right? How does that work?
Absolutely. Chronic stress, not getting enough sleep, these things can lead to higher levels of cortisol, the main stress hormone. And when cortisol stays high constantly, it can actually flip and start promoting inflammation. It's all connected: mind, body, diet.
It really is. Okay, one more thing before we get to practical tips.
Yeah.
Meal timing. And maybe overeating. How does that play in?
Yeah, constantly eating very large meals or snacking all day long can put a strain on your metabolism.
Anabolic stress.
Right, and that can indirectly feed into inflammation, especially if it leads to weight gain. The article even touches on things like time-restricted eating, eating only within a certain window each day, or avoiding late-night meals. These might have anti-inflammatory benefits, though it's still an area being researched.
Fascinating. So it's not just what, but also when and how much. Okay, let's get practical. Cooking tips for fighting inflammation. What simple things can we do in the kitchen?
Okay, the article has some great actionable stuff here. First, favor those moist heat methods. Steaming, poaching, stewing, slow cooking.
Lower temps, fewer AGEs.
Exactly. Second, use spices. Turmeric, ginger, cinnamon. These are anti-inflammatory powerhouses. Get them into your cooking.
Nice. I like using spices.
Third, fats. Choose healthy ones like olive oil, avocado oil, oversaturated, or trans fats.
Makes sense.
And finally, if you are grilling meat, marinating it first in something acidic like lemon juice or vinegar can actually help reduce AGE formation.
Oh, that's a cool trick. These all sound really doable. Now, a key point that keeps coming up is individual variation. What bothers one person is fine for another. How do we manage that?
That is probably the most crucial takeaway. The article really advises against just jumping on bandwagons and cutting out whole food groups because you read something somewhere. Yep. It's about self-discovery. Really pay attention. How do you feel after eating certain things? A food journal can be brilliant for this.
Listening to your body.
Yes. And if you're struggling or have health issues, absolutely talk to a professional. A registered dietitian or your doctor can offer personalized advice.
Makes sense. And there was a sidebar in the article, kind of a watch out for these list. What was on that?
Yeah, it highlighted some common pitfalls. Things like those super sugary breakfast cereals we mentioned, sweetened plant-based yogurts, back to that health halo idea.
Right.
Low-fat snacks that are often just full of salt and additives instead. Heavily charred or grilled meats, too many sugary, fizzy drinks, and drinking alcohol beyond moderate levels.
It really does sound like awareness of these everyday things is the biggest first step.
Absolutely. That's the core message, I think. It's not about perfection. Nobody eats perfectly all the time.
Thank goodness.
Right. It's about making small, sustainable, mindful shifts, focus on adding more nourishing whole foods, and gently reducing the things that seem to cause you problems.
So to kind of wrap this up, lots of common foods, even cooking styles, can contribute to that low-grade chronic inflammation. But knowing about them gives you the power, really, to make better choices for your own well-being.
Exactly.
And a huge caveat is always, individual responses vary. Self-awareness is your best guide here.
Couldn't agree more. And maybe, just to leave you with something to think about, consider this. What one small, tiny change could you maybe try this week? Something that seems insignificant, but based on what we've talked about, might actually have a positive ripple effect on how you feel long-term.
Yeah, just one small adjustment. Reflect on your own habits and see what feels manageable.
It's a good starting point.
Definitely. And of course, if you are dealing with persistent symptoms or have existing health conditions, please do chat with a registered dietitian or your GP for that tailored advice. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.